Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Andre Martin, the author of the new book, Wrong Fit, Right Fit: Why How We Work Matters More Than Ever. And in this book, he asserts that the issue behind the crisis of disengagement in the workplace isn't good or bad culture, but the fit between our ideal way of working day to day and that of the companies we join. Andre, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Shalom. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I know you've worked with some very large companies like Target, Nike, Google, and the list goes on and on. So I'm really curious how you got interested in this topic. I assume that this was something you've been exploring perhaps before the recent pandemic.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think I've in some way subconsciously been exploring it since I started my career. So I have had the pleasure to work in some of the biggest, most revered brands in the world in roles around culture, learning, and talent. And I'll tell you, I saw two things right away as I began my career and all the way through it. The first is that there's always a group of people in a company that literally are on cloud nine. They are working, it feels good, productivity comes easy. And then there's a second group that it feels like they're slogging through mud. Right? They struggle to be at their best. They feel like everyone has a secret decoder ring except to success, except for them. And work just feels harder than it should. And then the second thing I'd say is by working in companies like Nike and Target and Google and Mars is I came to realize something else. And that's that each of those companies works differently. Working at Nike is very different than Target, very different than Google, very different from Mars. And I think in that started to create this sense of, hey, maybe it's not about good or bad culture. Maybe it's not about toxic or engaging environments. Maybe it's truly about right and wrong fit.
Absolutely. And that's something, you've certainly demonstrated in your book. Again, it's called Wrong Fit, Right Fit: Why How We Work Matters More Than Ever. And it's interesting. You argue in the book that a powerful career starts with understanding if you are about the company, a craft, or a cause. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's one of my favorite parts of the book and something I've been thinking about for a long time is, often we don't think about the kind of career we're constructing. And so in the book, I lay out this idea that maybe there's three types of careers. The first one is of company. That means that you have this deep dedication to a place, a brand, a product, a set of people, and you couldn't see yourself working anywhere else. The second type of career is a career of craft. And these are people who want to be the best in the world at a very narrow thing. I would call myself in my career someone who's of craft. That is, I was chasing this idea of becoming one of the leading thought leaders in culture and leadership. And then there's people who are of cause. And those people are basically saying, hey, I work because I want to solve a great injustice or a giant problem that's plaguing the world. And here's the thing, is that depending on where you fall, you construct your career in a very different way. If you're of company, your job in a career is to have as many jobs in as many adjacent areas as possible because the power you bring is the knowledge of the network and the business. Very different than craft, very different than cause.
Absolutely. I'm chatting with Dr. Andre Martin. And Andre, I know you talk about three things that determine if a role is a right fit or a wrong fit. I don't want to give away all the secrets in this conversation, but what are they?
Well, I think there's a few things that really matter most. The first one for me is that I always think about this idea that you have to look at first how the company works, right? So how do you collaborate, solve problems, socialize ideas, manage conflict, develop people? How do they think about time and rest and recovery? And so one of the really important facets is you got to know how you work and you got to be able to see how a company works. I think secondly is around, for me, capability. So do you have the capability that they're looking for? Are they looking for someone who's a great podcast host? Are they looking for someone who's a great producer? Are they looking for a leadership development expert? And then the third piece is, do you like the work that's going to be right in front of you? And are you good at it? And so really thinking about fit in terms of the way a company works, the capability needed, and then the things or projects that are right in front of you are essential elements of finding fit.
Absolutely. And the fit has to go both ways. And that's where I want to spend the remainder of our conversation. We certainly know that in today's economy, in today's market, a lot of companies are struggling to find the talent that they need. But what's your message to the small businesses that might be listening to this program today, entrepreneurs, of how even they can find the talent that work like they work, benefiting from the right fit that you've been talking about so far in this program?
I would start with a very simple premise that we have to make interviews less like first dates and more like family reunions. And what do I mean by that? I mean to say that, you know what, everybody comes to an interview on their best behavior. Talent has these updated, beautiful resumes. They're wearing their best clothes. They have their stock answers. And companies come with this aspirational version of who they are. If I was talking to the small business owner, I would say, hey, listen, you're not perfect. Don't try to be. Present an authentic and real version that tells someone how you work, what you believe, and what your promise is to them. And there are people out there who work like you work, believe in what you believe, and care about what you care about. And better to find those people than to give someone an empty promise, have them show up in day one and realize it's not true.
Absolutely. I'm chatting with Dr. Andre Martin, the author of Wrong Fit, Right Fit, Why How We Work Matters More Than Ever. It's been featured on CNBC, the Financial Times, and so many other places. And we're going to continue our conversation talking about a message to the employees out there, the other side of that fit. But you are listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Get on my website, shalomklein.com. Get on your favorite podcast app and make sure you subscribe, rate, review, and share. Get a quick break. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Down to Business. I'm continuing my conversation with Dr. Andre Martin. Andre, really enjoying our conversation, and we've been talking about employers, but I want to talk about employees for a moment. How can they best be prepared for the conversations, the interviews that we were talking about, but that search which is a very big deal for them?
Yeah. So coming through the book, we did 110 interviews, and one of the most consistent themes when I asked anyone that landed in a right fit experience, what could you have done differently? They all mentioned, I wish I would have done a little bit more self-reflection before I opened that first job ad. It's really important for you to take a moment, take a step back, open your eyes really wide, and ask yourself what you're solving for. What do you value? How do you like to work? Who do you like to work for? What kind of life do you want in 5 years? And what do you need right now that you don't have in your current job? And if talent just did a little bit more reflection, they would be less apt to be seduced by the bright and shiny things that we see in pay and title and all the perks that companies offer us.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And, everything we've been talking about has been about the right fit. And it may be the right fit today, but Andre, you and I were talking a little bit offline that what might be true today about you as a candidate and that company, things change, people change, and companies change. So what do you do at that point to ensure that, the career remains a good fit?
I think you start with what you just said, which is don't pretend that everything's going to stay the same. You are growing every day. Life's the greatest classroom on earth. And your company is growing and changing, adapting and transforming. So I tell talent the best thing you can do is to reflect on where you are at least once a quarter, if not twice a year, and re-ask yourself those questions and re-look at, hey, does the company still work like it used to? And does it still work for me? And often I think we just get in the, rigmarole of everyday life and we forget to take a step back and really ask yourself, hey, does this still work? Is this still the right place at the right time?
Yeah, so we do the preparation, we do that reflection. And Andre, I know you talk to a lot of folks and you've been at this for a while. In fact, that's why you wrote this fantastic read. Again, one more time, it's called Wrong Fit, Right Fit, Why How We Work Matters More Than Ever. But you've also analyzed the cost of transition when it's not the right fit, when you onboard somebody that may not be the right fit for the company. Let's talk briefly about that before we conclude.
Yeah, there's two pieces to it. So from an employer side, when you hire someone that doesn't fit, it can be up to 200 times their annual salary, not including all the collateral damage that they might do. in bringing down the engagement of all the other people around them. So it's a really big cost. And often when you get to the leadership levels, those can be $1 million decisions that you're making. So it's better to take time. And I think from the employee standpoint, one of the most popular trends you see, and I'm sure you hear it all the time, is around this idea there just looks like there's greener grass everywhere. I get on social media, everyone seems to be having more fun at work than I am. And so we've gotten in this idea that I need to job hop, that I need to move from job to job to job to job. And what I want to tell people is there's a real unforeseen cost in that, because every time you move, you set your relationships back to zero. You set your reputational capital back to zero. And you have to learn a whole new language and way of doing work. And so the point of that is this, that realize that your creative energy is always flowing every day, all the time. When you put yourself in a transition, it's only flowing to the transition. It's flowing to rebuilding those things so you don't get better at your craft. You don't get to do your highest value work. And in the end, you're getting really good at transitioning, but not at the thing that you said you wanted to be great at. And so I just encourage people to take a beat and really think hard about where they are.
Well, I don't want to share all of the secrets, but it's been a great conversation, Dr. Andre Martin. Andre, how can we get in touch with you and pick up a copy of the book?
Yep, you can find the book on Amazon, all the major retailers. So go out there, buy a book, buy two, buy one for your friend. You can find me at www.wrongfitrightfit.com. The last place you can find me is at my newsletter. It's www.mondaymatters.substack.com.
Fantastic. Andre, thanks so much for joining us. That's a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business. Get on my website, syklein.com. To success. Let's get down to business. We'll see you next week.